So just say test, test, test.
Just speak to me. Where are we?
Yeah, right. We're in Switzerland in the rocket factory.
Oh, yeah?
Warehouse.
Oh, yeah?
About to film a podcast.
About to film a podcast. What's up, everybody? I'm Jack Main. This is the Get That Skate podcast. I'm here today with a very important person. I've got Mr. Daniel Iseli. We're here in Switzerland at the Rocket Factory. And what town are we in?
Town called Steinen.
Town called Steinen.
Yeah.
Now, before we started this podcast, you gave us a little tour of the factory. It's an awesome place. A few of the Aussie boys from back home were telling me how good it was as well. So it's good to finally be here and to see where all the boards are made. But you briefly told us earlier that this is the town that you actually grew up in, is that right?
That's right, yeah. It's a small town just at the start of the Swiss Alps. Just about 3,000 people were living here. And I grew up here till I was 20, then moved away and recently got back here.
Yeah. So we're here, we've got a lot to talk about in terms of rocket longboards, but I want to take it right back to the start, as being 10 years now. Let's go right back to how you found downhill skating and what got you, set that spark in you to eventually build boards and go down this path.
Yeah. I mean, I started skating in 1996, but that was when I was 16 years old, and yeah. I just bought a slalom board, was doing some slalom, then I started street skating. And I only got into downhill skating when I was like 23 years old in 2003.
Okay.
And the reason was quite simple. A couple of friends of mine and we were street skating, and we were not really good at it. And then just somebody brought a downhill skateboard or just a longboard from somewhere, and then we realized, it's so much more fun and so much easier just to go down a hill on a skateboard. And that's when I stopped street skating and got into downhill skating.
And were you living in this town at that time, or were you elsewhere?
I was living elsewhere, but actually the people I started doing it with was in this town. So that's the reason why we only got together to skate like every 2-3 weeks, just on a weekend. But we were skating a little bit in this area. You can see around here we got a lot of beautiful mountains.
Beautiful.
But usually we were going to the bigger passes, doing also some early birds on passes like San Bernardino, for example.
Okay. So a lot of those are the Swiss Alpi type roads that we've seen.
Exactly,
in all the videos and all the magazines over the years. So you mentioned you're getting your first longboard. Do you remember what your first longboard was?
You mean downhill longboard?
Yeah.
That was actually a Swiss brand. It was called Seawood. That doesn't exist anymore.
Okay.
But they were just, usually they built snowboards, but they built a couple of downhill skateboards at that time. Really long camber, no concave, equipped with Randall DH trucks.
Oof.
And something called slick wheels. Wheels made by a Swiss company at the time. They were actually made of rubber. Yep. So you can, you had two hubs that you can take apart and then switch the rubber when it's done.
Yeah, right.
And these were really slow, but these were the best carbon wheels, because at that point we didn't really know how to slide, because that was pre-YouTube. Nobody knew how you would really exactly ride. So we were riding those slick wheels because you can go just down a straight hill, but you don't get past like 60 Ks. Yeah. And just if there's a corner, you just throw a couple of carves and then you just go around the corner. That was a way different style of riding than it is now. But then later we also switched to what we called fast wheels at the time. That was just like normal wheels, like that was ABEC fly wheels, or I skated a lot of ABEC flashbacks at the time.
Yeah, shout out to ABEC. Been around for a long time.
Yeah, they brought it back, or at least a part of it. I was quite excited to see that.
Yeah, it's going to be cool to see what comes of that. But when you're talking about you sound like you had a little bit of a crew going. Were you doing a lot of traveling for skating back then?
No, not really. We've been we've been a bit too lazy, so we just met like every couple of weeks,
Yep.
and skated just whenever we wanted, and that was not that was a time where we're not really connected with bigger crews,
Yeah.
because that was like pre-YouTube, pre-internet. There
Pre-social
was
media-
internet, but not.
Pre-social media.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so we just actually, for a couple of years, there was just the one crew where we skated together.
Yeah.
And of course, then there were some events.
Yeah.
And this weekend we're going to Chesteca. That's an event that's this year, I think it's the 15th time
Yeah.
they're doing it. And that started, I think, in 2006. And then
Yeah.
that was the time when there were events also like Bukolik, where you were before. These are the old events that we started going to
Yeah.
as soon as they popped up.
Yeah, that's all. I was interested to know if you were getting to any of those events back then, because it's like Kozakov that a lot of downhill skaters know about. That was nearing on 20 years almost.
Yeah.
We've just had K&K, which just hit 14 years. So in your early days downhill skateboarding, were you getting to any of these events, or were you mostly just going on missions with your crew in the Alps?
I mean, in the beginning, that was actually before all the events started.
Yeah.
So there were not a lot of these. And we didn't really travel abroad.
Yeah.
We just skated here in Switzerland. But you can tell that I was never never a downhill skater who wanted to skate every day.
Yeah.
I was, even in the beginning, I was also usually a bit more focused on gear than on skating. So I was always trying to, instead of improving my skills, I usually try to improve my setup.
Yeah.
Which was pretty interesting at that time, because when I started, the setups were so basic that there was a lot of room to improve. And that was really interesting at this time, because there was a whole new development of boards started, and like 3D concave, and also a concave overall. And we started to have better trucks, we started to have better wheels. And that was a really interesting time. That was maybe late 2000s, 2008, 9, 10, when the last big wave of downhill skateboarding started, when everything was getting huge in the US and also here in Europe. That was the time when we didn't really skate that much anymore, but I got more and more interested in gear and in boards. What can you do with boards? Where can you go?
Yeah, I can definitely tell just by looking at the current lineup and the previous boards in your lineup, and of course walking around the factory, that you're a bit of a craftsman, and you seem to hit that that perfect level with a lot of your board building. So it's really good to see. But let's take it right back to when you first started actually building your boards. You're talking about modifying your gear and trying different things, but let's talk about board building, which would essentially be the start of Rocket over 10 years ago now. But we've walked around the factory and there's some crazy boards here. So what got you wanting to build a board in the first place?
I mean, wanting to build a board in the first place was because I was looking for kinds of boards that didn't really exist on the market, and B, there was a time when it was actually possible to start from the bottom as a normal person and build a great board, because there was not so many good stuff on the market. And at the same time, there was a longboard forum with a huge build your own board section, and people, they actually helped each other, and I was a big part of that. And we had building contests similar to Silverfish. And so I saw what actually is possible, what you can do, and I realized, okay, that's something I want to do, because what I was looking for was not available on the market, and so I saw the possibility to build it myself.
Okay. So you speak about forums, and you did mention Silverfish there. Silverfish, when I was younger, was a great place to learn, to find out things, just a great place for any downhill skater or longboarder to just go and find out what's happening in the world. We had a version in Australia called Azra as well, so I ended up spending a lot more time on the Azra forums. But the board building contests on Silverfish, and obviously the forums that you were on over here, there was just like a wealth of knowledge from so many people. So if you weren't
Absolutely.
sure, I never built a board myself, but I'm sure if you were setting out to go and do that, you just got to spend, you know, that hour on the forums, and there's this person sharing their skills on what to do for here, and then this person what to do there. So
Yeah.
your first board, tell us about your first board.
My first board was already a light, or I tried to build it as light as possible with maple, poplar, carbon, glass fiber,
Yeah.
and it was a drop-down board, but still with a almost 40-inch wheelbase, because that's what we rode at that time, and it was amazing. I mean, it was really interesting to build the board.
Yeah.
And then the first time you go downhill on a board you made by yourself, it was just an amazing feeling.
I'm sure it would be.
But the next day I was already thinking about what I can improve in that board.
Yeah.
Because, of course, when you start something completely new, you make mistakes, but you learn from them, and then you want to improve. So I made another one,
Yeah.
and then got some new ideas, built the next one, and then you realize that you have all the materials, you have all you have your first molds, you have everything you need. So why stopping? So you can just go on and try new things, and that's what I did.
Yeah. So you just mentioned like a whole, what to me it just sounded like a whole bunch of ingredients for that board. You named all the different construction of it, of course. But if we're going back, say 20, 15 years ago, a lot of the boards on the market were just your standard, you know, your Sector 9s,
Yeah.
Landyachts was coming up. There were big longboard brands, but you weren't quite as much seeing the carbon fibres and the drops and the crazy constructions. I remember actually Silverfish I found, I think it was a German downhill company called 313.
Yeah.
And they made these crazy boards, like crazy carbon layouts. They had like gold flake logos and things like that. Was it just the board building community that was getting you inspired, or were you seeing, I guess, like, for lack of a better word, bigger brands like 313? I'm not sure how big they were here, but they had like this super high-end finish. Were there any brands that were inspiring you as well to build?
Yeah, I mean, 313 was definitely a big inspiration.
Yeah.
Because there were a couple that built boards in their kitchen.
I heard that, yeah.
And they made amazing boards, but they were really small scale builders. So I don't know, they probably built like maybe maximum 50 boards.
Right.
And so, yeah, that was definitely an inspiration to see that even with, if you don't have like a huge workshop and all the tools, that you can still build something amazing.
Yeah.
And that's something that was really inspiring, as they inspired a lot of people to come into the whole thing and build their own boards. Because before that, it was just like, nobody actually thought about making their own boards for a couple of times, for some time, because you thought that you need to have a big workshop and big presses and everything, and then suddenly you realize, oh, it's actually not that hard. You don't need a lot of stuff. What you need is, some skills, some craftsmanship, and also ideas.
Yeah.
And because that was the time when, as I said, the whole 3D concave thing was just at the beginning. So there was still so much room for new things, and so much room for new ideas and how you can actually implement these ideas. And so this was really interesting, because nothing was really available in the market in these terms. So you can build something from scratch, something completely new that has never been done before. Now I think it would be a bit more difficult, because a lot of things already have been done.
Yeah.
And so, but it's still interesting to see where the whole development goes.
Of course. Now, talking about your early days board building, were you just building boards for yourself, or did you have that crew that you were skating with? Were you building boards for them? Was it mostly just a thing for you to spend your time doing and work out what you wanted?
I mean, the first couple of boards, of course, I built them for myself.
Yeah.
Because also I wanted to see that I can actually make a product that works.
Yeah.
Before I wanted to give it to somebody else. But pretty soon it started that people were asking for boards, or that was not nothing big, but just like friends who were giving me some ideas, and I built some boards for them. And so that's actually how the whole thing started and how the whole thing grew.
Yeah. And talk about some of the features you were using in some of your earliest boards. Like you mentioned that it was a drop-down board. Did you do any top-mounted decks then? Because at the time, drop-down boards were that's what everyone was riding.
Yeah.
If you're thinking high speeds, you're thinking, well, I got to have those drops, or I got to have my trucks drop through.
Mm-hmm.
So were you experimenting with different styles of boards, or mainly just the boards of that era, like the drop downs?
No, actually, I tried a couple of different things because I didn't want to like just build the same board twice because it was just for myself. So I wanted to see how different boards feel. First one was a drop down board, then one was a drop through board. Then I started building top mount boards, but experimenting with rockers, different rockers, or like the first kind of flares actually no boards at this time really had flares, but then it was just like starting to come up, and I did some experiments with that and combinations of flares into rocker and stuff. And I mean, the first boards I built, these were all carbon foam core boards.
Okay.
And so that was actually, it's pretty easy because you don't have to bend a lot of material. So it's easy to try some 3D stuff because they were all just really simple foam molds.
Yeah.
And everything was pressed in a vacuum bag.
Okay.
So there was just pressing a lot of wood into these molds would be really difficult, and then you definitely need a real press. But if you're working with vacuum, which is a vacuum press, then it's pretty easy to build or to bend stuff into 3D things. And so with these possibilities, I was trying to see how far I can go, how well I can bend some boards.
Yeah.
And you've seen boards on the wall that
Yeah.
I started with foam cores with crazy rocker with like one was actually the first version of the Hades that we still have in the lineup. There was as just a mellow rocker in the front, a steep rocker in the back. So that was actually already, I was thinking about implementing kind of a torque block into a board.
Right.
And that was probably 10 years before there was a torque block available to buy.
Yeah. Nice.
Yeah.
So when we're talking about your early days board building, where was this taking place? We mentioned 313 were doing it in their kitchen. Were you just doing it in the garage, or did you have a workshop? Or
Actually, I started in my parents' basement.
Okay.
So I was not living at home at this point anymore. So every time I came back on a weekend and built on the boards in the basement. And then, pretty soon after that, I realized that this is actually a lot of fun, and I want to do that more often. So in the town I was living at that point, I was renting just a little room somewhere in the basement,
right.
and started doing building boards there. So actually, it always grew. The first room I rented was like 25 square meters.
Yeah.
Then the next workshop was 50 square meters, then up 100, and now we got like 200.
I know when we walked in here today, you actually asked us what did we think the factory would be bigger or smaller, and I'm surprised at how big it is. You got a good spot here with a great view out there as well.
Yeah. Really happy about that.
Yeah, of course. So just before we keep going down the board building conversation, I just wanted to touch on who were some of the big names at this time in downhill skating in Europe, because being from Australia, the other side of the world, I was just seeing all the updates and seeing what was happening at first through Concrete Wave magazine.
Yeah.
And then obviously YouTube became more of a prominent place for people to post their media. But I think I've mentioned on the podcast a few times before, but I always rode cruisers. And then one day I stumbled upon a Concrete Wave magazine at like a general store.
Yeah.
And on the front cover, it was a black and white photo of somebody skating. To my knowledge, I could be wrong, but I think it was a Swiss road. Don't know exactly which one. And on the cover of the magazine, it said Speedboarder of the Year. So that year was when Misha Urban won Speedboarder of the Year.
Yeah.
He had a 12-page spread in the magazine. but he didn't get the cover, which is really interesting as to why that happened. But the
Funny.
person on the cover was a legendary Australian skater named Stephen Datto.
Yeah.
So Stephen Datto is one of the first Aussies to start coming over to Europe and travelling for downhill skating. But it's just interesting for me to know who were like the active names at the time, and who was like, if you were hearing about what was going on in downhill skating in Europe, who were those big names?
Yeah. I mean, one of the first names I knew was a Swiss guy called Martin Sigrist.
The legend.
Definitely a legend, yeah. I mean, he was a downhill champ, and then there was somebody that is a bit lesser known, but she was female world champion. She's still called Jolanda Vogler,
Okay.
and that was also time, I think, around 2009, 2010.
Right.
And then, of course, we had some other fast Swiss people. Then it came Christoph Bott.
Yep.
You had Rüffli, he was skating with Bud a lot, and these were probably like then we had Ramon Königshausen. He was the first guy who rode down Mary Hill on a kind of a short board.
Yes.
I think the bracket wouldn't be considered as a short board anymore, but at the time it definitely was, and with some slalom trucks. And we had some good German guys. I mean, we had Sebastian Hettler.
Yeah.
He's actually still riding, and but he was also like one of the big names when I started like to actually like get to know the scene a bit more, or get the community, because as I said, when I started, we didn't really know anything about what happened in the world.
Right.
And then it was just like, when he said this, you get the first Concrete Wave magazine, or some other magazines, that you actually learn that there are a lot of people out there, and you learn about the whole scene, the whole worldwide scene. Yeah, but these actually were the big names at the time.
Yeah, you just dropped a few bombs on me, some legendary names just then. Like, I mean, Martin Sigrist is a legend, you know, world champion, of course. We had in Australia, we had Christoph Back come over, and you mentioned the airflow bracket that he was running. Crazy piece of wood, that one.
Absolutely.
Were Airflow out of Switzerland, or were they from?
Yeah.
So legendary company right there. The bracket, like I said, the way that they've bent the wood on that board is just crazy.
Yeah.
But,
and funny thing, I don't know if you know, but the bracket was designed by Martin Sigrist.
Right, yeah.
And I mean, it started with the Fuse. That was the drop-through version of it. And the bracket was just, I mean, probably just more or less the same board with a shorter top mount.
Yeah.
And when this board came out, everybody was just blown away, because that was something that nobody seen before.
It was so different, yeah. I think by the time that board had came out, people were used to seeing like the Evos and the Chinooks in the world.
Yeah.
And there was some carbon fiber going on, particularly in the board building scene, like we've spoken about. But that bracket was insane. But yeah, it's interesting. I've always known about Airflow, but didn't know that they were specifically from Switzerland. So Switzerland's got some very crafty people.
Yeah, definitely. There were, or still are, a couple of good brands. I mean, we had Airflow. Unfortunately, they don't really build boards anymore. Yeah. We still have FiberTech. We have 9.81.
Of course, yeah.
And we had some smaller brands, because like back in the days, late 90s, early 2000s, there was like one big thing, these special kind of slalom boards that we had that were mostly produced in Switzerland. They had a lot of camber, a lot of flex.
Yeah.
They're not really made for the real slalom, what you now see with the raised hills and everything.
Yeah.
But this was huge in Switzerland and the countries around us, and there were a couple of brands that actually got big. One brand was Indiana.
Okay.
I think they build SUPs now, but they were huge because they had this niche with these slalom boards that you just used to run around the city.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, some of them don't exist anymore. But
yeah. So, and just quickly, you mentioned Ramon. He actually came out to Australia one year for our slalom series, the Conehead Cup, and that I was shocked at how well this dude could skate. And then I later found out he's comes from downhill and was trying out the slalom and was really good at it. So, like I said, dropping a lot of big names on me, but. like that was, we're going back, we're talking about Rocket. Congratulations, by the way, on 10 years.
Thank you.
It's a solid effort. I mean, I just realised this year, that's now at 5 years, so I'm at the halfway point so far.
Also good.
But
Congrats.
it's thank you. It's so good to see, because in my time being a downhill skateboarder, I've seen so many great things come and go, and it's great to see someone who's really sticking it out. Like you hit the 10-year point, and it's a solid effort. And I can tell just by walking the walls of the factory and seeing like how things have changed. There's been so much progression, not just in your board building, but in the sport itself.
Yeah.
But let's go back to, like we've spoken about your board building and doing it as, I guess, like a hobby and finding out things for yourself. But so tell us about when you decided to make Rocket into a company.
Yeah. So when I started building boards, I was still studying at the time, and then the board building got more and more and more. I started developing more boards, and that was also the reason why my whole studies went a bit longer than expected. And yeah, well, after I finished my studies, I had to make a decision. The obvious decision would be that you do something in the field that you studied. I studied work psychology.
Okay.
That means I would probably be somewhere in HR right now. But when I started building boards, I soon realized that this is actually my passion and this is what I want to do. So after I finished the studies, I had to decide. It's like head against heart. Head said you need to do something real in your life, and heart said, but I want to keep building boards. And I made the decision that I at least have to try it, because if not, I might regret it. And yeah, that was 10 years ago, and I never regret it since. So I'm really happy that I made this decision.
Yeah, I love hearing that. It's a dream for a lot of people to, you know, do their passion as like their day job, and to just go through life doing what they love doing every day. And
Yeah.
as I said, like looking around the walls of the factory and seeing Rocket boards over the years, there's just been so many great changes. And you can see with the lineup behind us, it's this is the 10-year lineup.
Yes, exactly.
10-year anniversary. It's a high performance line. You got some beautiful boards. But in those early days, when you were making the boards, and was it just Europe you were sending boards to? Was it mainly Switzerland? How far in those early, let's say, first 2 or 3 years, how far was Rocket reaching?
I already in the beginning, I tried to make it as international as possible,
Yeah.
because then you're less dependent on fluctuations in the markets. And I mean, the scene in Switzerland was not that big that you could actually live from building boards for Swiss people. And I mean, since I started building boards connected to like that one German forum, so I was already a bit known in Germany, and then that was also like the beginning of like Facebook and Instagram became a lot more important, and I try to like get everything out there, to make pictures, to make videos, to show what I'm doing or what we're doing. I try to have good riders, to sponsor good riders straight from the beginning, because I knew that having a good team is really essential if you wanna make it as a brand in a market. And that definitely helped to like get recognized all over the world. Like one of the first riders we sponsored was Dominic Schenk, and he was already almost at his peak at that time.
Yeah.
And not really, but he was getting there, and so a lot of eyes were on him, and so we made him a pro model, and a lot of people were just like, wow, I wanna ride the same board as he does. And so I like to come back to the question. Also, even in the beginning, as it was already like we were trying to sell worldwide, and that was mostly Europe. But even we started to ship some boards to Australia pretty soon. Actually, we had South Korea, who was big at the time because they were getting into downhill skating at the point. We shipped boards to the US, to South America, and now. Like I mean, the US and Europe are our biggest markets.
I'm grateful to be able to have this conversation with you, to be able to talk to someone who's in a similar position, because even with Get That, when I get orders from places around the world, it's like, for you, is it still to this day, does it still just absolutely blow your mind that you're sending boards to these places like Australia and South Korea? Because I get orders come in to another country and I'm just like, I can't even believe it sometimes.
Yeah. I still have that. I still open orders and think, wow, that's cool. We never shipped a board there.
Yeah.
And of course, because I mean, for us, or for me, it's not just a product. It's just not just something, because it's a board that I developed or we developed and we built here with our own hands. And so it's always something special to ship out a board wherever in the world.
Yeah.
And of course, it's always cool to ship boards to new countries that you never shipped anything before. But I mean, we appreciate every order we get, and we're really happy to see that the boards are written all over the world.
Yeah, people don't always see all the time and the thoughts that go into from their end is a product, but for someone like you, it's like so much time, hours, blood, sweat and tears goes into putting out something. So it's that's what I was saying, it's great to be able to talk to someone who can experience that feeling of like, people around the world are loving what you do, and then you send out that product to the world and you get to see them shred it, and it must be just such a good feeling.
Absolutely.
So talking about the team, you spoke about Dominic being one of the first members of the team. Who were some other riders from the early days of Rocket? Did you have a big team? Because right now, I'll get into it later, of course, that there's quite a stacked team. It's a strong team. What was it like in the early days of Rocket?
It was not as big as it is now, but I think in the beginning there were maybe like 5-6 people.
Okay.
And some of them are still skating, some of them aren't. And it was a constant change. Usually not because people wanted to quit or we wanted to like have people gone, but usually it's just like that whole development that a person goes through. Because as a rider, you work a lot to get a certain amount of skills, and then you get recognized by companies, you get sponsorships. But then also there comes a time where you don't skate as much anymore, you maybe don't produce a lot of media anymore. And still some of these people, they're still part of the family.
Yeah.
But maybe not on the official Team Rider page on their website, but still part of the family. Because, I mean, a lot of our team riders actually became close friends, or were friends and became team riders, or vice versa. And because I mean, every brand says their team is like family. And actually, I don't want to say that we're different, but we actually treat it that way.
Yeah, I love that. So it's interesting. You've got a stacked team at the moment. Do you want to just roll off some of the riders that are in your team, particularly riders that have pro models?
Yeah. Currently we have a couple of pro models. You can actually see some of them here.
I see you got the Carlotti Pro at the end there.
I mean, that's the latest one, the Leon, that we developed with Antoine Carlotti. Really nice guy, really talented guy, and I think we made a great board for him because it's super versatile. You can use it for a lot of different things.
Yeah, I was lucky to meet Carlotti. I've always known about him and spoken to him via social media, but finally being able to come over to Europe after such a long time and meeting Carlotti at K&K and seeing him ride this board, he shreds. So he's
absolutely,
it's a great addition to the team. Who else do we have up here? We got
So we have the Domination here, and the bigger version of the Domination. The Domination is not here right now. So that Dominic Schenk, and that's definitely the oldest pro model we have. I mean, this is the smaller version that's a bit newer, but Dominic is just a legend, and he's been around forever. Unfortunately, he doesn't skate that much anymore, but I mean, he skated a lot in his.
And he made a couple good boards while he was
made
skating.
A couple of good boards. The board went through a lot of stages. It was revised a couple of times. Later, I can show you the first model. I'm pretty sure you probably haven't seen it before.
Of course.
And then we have still the macro and the micro. I'm not sure if you can see them in the shot. I think you can see the macro with the bat.
Should I turn it?
Yeah. So
Over
the
here.
two with the bats.
two.
These are Ian Freyry's pro models. Also super talented guy. Also, unfortunately, he doesn't skate that much anymore because now he's putting his focus on his education.
Yeah.
And
Life happens.
in my opinion, that's definitely a good choice
Yeah.
because good education is the most important thing.
That's
Don't have
it.
to tell you as a teacher.
Yeah.
And then the last one, we got the Phoenix, the pro model of Tristan Cordillo.
Yeah.
And that was also revised for this year.
That's a great board, that one.
Thanks.
As I mentioned to you before, that's the board Duddy's riding, Australian legend Duddy. He's
Yeah.
on the Phoenix, loves that board. It's a very comfortable board too.
It is.
But these are the boards that you took to K&K for people to trial, and I know you had heaps more that people were, I think, able to buy as well while they were there, which is always great. But one board I wanted to touch on, and we can talk about more riders if we haven't already, but one thing that made me already had so much respect for yourself and Rocket as a company, but it was roughly a year ago when I heard like a rumor of my very good friend from America, David Bubier, get put on Rocket, and I thought at the time, I was thinking, well, from a company standpoint, it's like, how smart of an idea is this? This person doesn't have social media, he doesn't have a presence on the internet in like I said, social media, but in terms of downhill skaters around the world and being around downhill skaters and traveling a lot, David's he's one of the craziest skateboarders I've ever met.
Mm-hmm.
So like I said, when I heard that something was happening with David and Rocket, I was just like, it's like as simply put, it's like real recognize real. And I was like, the fact that Rocket are willing to put time into David and to put his name on a board and to build something with him, whatever that may be. I thought, as I said, you know, I'm sitting on the other side of the world in Australia. I was just thinking like, I had so much respect. It was already there, but I was thinking it's simply put, just real, recognize real, and it just made me so happy to see David, and the board's great, and he's told me the stories behind it and whatnot, and it's really cool.
Yeah. By the way, David, I'm sorry that I forgot you and your pro model because it's not here right now.
But that's why I mentioned that at K&K you had heaps of boards for sale.
Of course.
I did see the David board there, the Rooster, sorry.
I just realized that it's not in there. I forgot to place it in here.
Any other pro model boards that aren't up here behind us right now?
Nah, that's all.
I know you're working on some stuff as well. Is that something you want to touch on?
We're always working on new stuff, you know.
Always.
I think that's something a lot of people know, that there's never a second that we're not working on new stuff. Because to me personally, that's the most important and also most interesting thing.
Yeah.
Because developing a board is so much more fun than actually build it like 100 times. But of course, that's part of the game as well. But right now we're actually working on a couple of boards.
Okay.
Let me see. We're working on 5 new boards.
Whoa.
I'm pretty sure the one you mentioned is Benson's.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the whole thing started with you guys. But I have to say, I met Benson at the K&K.
Yes, he'd jumped over a few
think
times.
I was like 18 or 19 when he was 16 years old. He was at the K&K.
2018 was when I first went to K&K,
Yeah.
and Benson was there as, I believe at the time, a 16-year-old.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking, I was like early 20s, I was like, bro, you here with your parents or what? He goes, no, just flew over. I'm thinking, what 16-year-old travels to the middle of some Eastern European country?
That was really fun to see that a 16-year-old comes to Slovenia to skate for a week. And I met him there, and I thought, this is a really interesting guy, and I liked his skating.
Yeah.
So I kept following him over the years. And then there was actually a point when I thought, wow, he's getting really good now. But then I saw that he was developing a board with some local builder in
one of the Perth boys.
In Australia. And then I thought, okay, I mean, I don't really ask people who are already into projects with other brands, because I mean, it's okay. I don't want to like drag people away from other brands.
Well, I mean, you're a respectful person.
Yeah,
it's a good way to be about it.
I kept following him, but I thought, okay, he's already developing something. until you guys mentioned that there's actually brands should ask Benson because he's looking for a sponsor, and I think it took me like 1 or 2 days, and I sent him a message.
I love that. Love that.
And from there it went pretty fast. So we were talking.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I already knew what kind of board he's probably looking for. I knew
Clapped out piece of small wood.
yeah, but I mean, more in dimension wise. Of course, his boards, they looked really interesting because they were just like chopped out of something else. But you can see that it has to be short, narrow, and has to have a really short wheelbase.
Yeah.
And I thought that's really interesting because I can see that the whole development in skating is actually getting to smaller, shorter boards with shorter wheelbases. And I thought that's actually the perfect person to talk to and to work on something new with.
Yeah, speaking of Benson, like I was mentioning with David, it's so cool to see someone who might not be the hottest thing in the spotlight, but being recognised by a brand such as Rocket. To give them like that platform to build something and create something really cool. And the thing with Benson is, I got to give him his flowers, is, and we mention it on the podcast all the time, I truly believe he's one of the best freeriders in the world.
Yeah.
Obviously being Australian, we're limited to the hills we have, but we've spent some time with Benson. I know Jaden and Marla are in the room with us behind the camera. We've spent some time with Benson skating, and it's just like, it's just shocking sometimes. Like he will attack any hill as if he's been skating it for 10 years himself. And a lot of people, a lot of the world actually, Scoot Mano had this hectic year last year. He spent like 7-8 months abroad skating all the craziest hills in the world, and that was the point we said on the podcast is, of course, Scotty is one of the best freeriders in the world, no lie, but Benson's right there with him.
Yeah.
So to know that you and Benson are working on something is so special for him. But for the rest of Australia, seeing someone like Benson who shreds so hard to be given that recognition is really important. And again, I just wanted to say thank you for that.
Welcome.
Like I said with the David board, it's just so good to see. It's so good to see these really core people get.
Yeah. I mean, we always try to have our eyes open, and we always trying to be like to know where the good people are, or like the good. That's easy nowadays with social media.
Yeah,
that was hard with David because David wasn't on social media, so it was really it was difficult to really get a good picture of him because I mean, David, he once approached us, sent us an email asking about the sponsorship, and at first I thought, no, I don't even know who you are. I cannot find anything of you on Facebook or Instagram. But then I quickly realized, fuck, that guy can actually skate like hell. And with Benson, it was different. Of course, I followed him. I knew what he's up to, and I knew the skill set he has. And so that's a good thing nowadays that you can... I mean, I follow a lot of people on social media that I want to see how they progress and see if they could actually be possible riders for us.
Yeah.
And with Benson, it was just like that nice coincidence. And also, one of the reasons why we're developing a board with Benson right now is that he's not just one of the best free riders, but also like one of the most progressive ones because of that kind of the really short board, the really short wheelbase, really narrow. That's where everything is going now, but he's actually he's on top of that because he's riding shorter and narrow boards than most other people.
I saw Benson putting weights on his board nearly 4 years ago.
Yeah.
And I can't speak the specifics, but a lot of people in Australia, when they talk about weights, and there's a conversation worldwide that Benson was one of the first people doing it. Actually, Davis in Australia was, but Benson really ran with it and took it to that small freeride board style. But yeah, you've shown us the concave, the press, and we've had a look at the concave. I'm really excited for what's to come with the Benson board. But before we talk about some other boards that you have cooking up, because like you said, you're always working, and I love that about Rocket. But when we're talking about Benson, I look at all these boards behind me, and the Rhino, which is my favourite board in the lineup right now. It's got a Rhino on the graphic. You look at the other boards, you got the Bats on the Ian boards. You got all these sick graphics. Has there been any talk yet of what Benson might have on his board?
Unfortunately not.
Yeah.
Because in my opinion, the board and the specs and the concave is a lot more important than the graphics.
Of course.
So that's the reason why first we work on the board, and when that's done,
yeah.
then we can focus on the graphics. And sometimes you actually get a feeling while you're working on a board what kind of name or kind of theme or graphic could work. But to be honest, we haven't really talked about that yet, because focus was to build the board exactly how he wants.
Yeah.
And I think we're at the point where he is really happy. And I think we probably don't have to change anything anymore.
Love that.
So, I mean, it's the 14th of August right now. That means we will talk about all the details, and we will work on a release date soon.
Yeah. I know for everyone who's watching this who knows Benson, you could have a bit of fun trying to make a guess of what his what the graphic might be. I'm hoping it'll lean towards something Australian vibes, but we'll just hang in there and we'll see what's to come. But you said you got 5 boards cooking. Is there any other pro models that you have cooking up at the moment?
That's a good question, because talking about pro models, we're definitely the new ones, the new boards we're developing them with some certain people.
Yeah.
But it's not really clear right now if there will be pro models or not.
Okay, yeah.
Because, to be honest, we have quite a few pro models already.
Right.
And I think that we probably want to go a little bit away from calling them pro models.
Yes.
It's not because of the money, because we will probably still pay people just a share of what we get. But I think it's difficult to have a lineup that almost only consists of pro models.
Pro models, yeah, I understand that.
So so that's the reason why it's not really sure how they will be called. But I mean, one of the boards that's definitely already the cat's out of the bag is that we're working with Bumpy Hales.
Bumpy Hales out of the UK?
Yeah.
Yep.
And because he was already riding it at the K&K, so it's not really secret anymore.
Yeah.
I mean, he was on the podium of the Knob House Down with the prototype, which made me extremely happy.
Oh yeah.
I mean, you can understand. I put a lot of work and a lot of thought in these boards, and then when you actually give somebody a prototype and the guy gets second at a race, it's just this is a dream come true. This is just perfect.
Yeah.
And so we're working with him, and something that's probably also safe to say is that we're working on a board with bagels.
Okay.
And this will be a board that is actually tailored to women and people with smaller feet.
Right.
And but we're also in the prototyping phase right now, and there will also be 2 new dancers, or dancer and more of a freestyle board.
Yeah.
But nothing completely done yet. We're at the end of the prototyping phase right now.
Okay.
But for me, it's really important to take as much time as it's needed with prototyping to have a board that does exactly what it's designed for. Like I said, when I showed you everything before, I told you the way we build our presses, the way we build our molds, it's actually quite easy to prototype and to mill a mold, press a board on it, give it to the rider to try it, and then adapt some things, mill the mold again. That's pretty easy, and every time we start a project with a rider, the first thing I'm telling is that we will make as many prototypes as needed to have the perfect board.
Yeah, I love that. Finding, really putting in the work to make it as perfect as can be, and then get it out. Because I've seen in the past a lot of companies will just push something out, and then they realize there's flaws in it. So, yeah, definitely love hearing that you spend a lot of that time.
Yeah, I mean that's definitely one big advantage we have since we make everything in house.
Yep.
So we can just develop everything in here, and you don't really have to like communicate with factories and get prototypes shipped from overseas. So it's everything works pretty fast here because we can just switch stuff and try something new.
So yeah, we've got the downhill, most of the downhill lineup behind me, but Rocket doesn't just stop there. Rocket has the Scout series, the smaller boards like the cruiser type single kick, double kick boards.
Yep.
There's the Rambler, which is or what I call a LDP board.
Yep.
And there's a lot of other boards in the lineup. Would you like to just touch on some of those boards?
Yeah, I mean, you already mentioned everything. Yeah, I mean, of course, most people know us for our downhill boards, so that's also the biggest part of the lineup. Then we have the long distance boards. We have 3 of them right now. Then, yeah, we got the Scout series, which is pretty versatile, from pool decks to surf skates, to cruisers. And the last one would be the dancer lineup. So we got 2 different dancers now, working on 2 more.
Okay.
And to make that a little bit more versatile. And yeah, it was since the beginning. It was important to me to focus not just on downhill.
Yeah.
But to have a little bit of a wider lineup, to also serve people who are not into downhill. And since I personally was always interested in long distance pumping, pushing, I'm not the fittest guy in the world, so I cannot push 100 miles, but a lot of people can, and I want to make boards as good as it gets for them as well.
Yeah.
And because I think the long distance part is pretty interesting for me, because usually they're gear nerds.
Yep.
And they think about a lot about boards and materials, and so it's really, and I do the same. So that's something where I can actually like add something to the long distance part, because yeah, people are looking for the best material possible, and I like to build the best boards possible.
Yeah.
So in my opinion, that's actually a good fit. And same with the dancers. Also, the dances are a bit more complex than a usual dancer, because usually they're just made out of wood, maybe a little bit of glass fiber. That's it. And ours are made with a natural flax fiber, which makes the board a little bit softer to ride. You don't get glass fiber splinters in your finger if you damage them. Same with the Scout series, with the pool boards.
Yeah.
I mean, pool boards are made to fucking shred them.
Yeah.
And so it's, I mean, now mostly you still have 7-ply maple boards, because a lot of companies try to make it with glass fiber, but it's not really good to put glass fibers in a board that gets damaged, because then, yeah, you got the stuff in your fingers. So we built the pool boards with also with the natural flax fiber.
Okay.
That makes it a lot smoother to ride, especially when you're riding on small wheels on concrete. And also, yeah, you don't get splinters when they're damaged, and they last a lot longer than a typical pool board. Of course, they also cost more, because unfortunately it's difficult to build a cheap board here.
Yeah.
But yeah, you can see that also there we were trying to put a lot of thought into the product and see in which way we can actually make the board better.
Yeah, well, looking at the lineup, and especially being here and being able to pick up each and every board, I think regardless of price, the quality's there when you pick it up. You can see the quality, you can feel the quality. So, yeah, all the boards in the lineup. That's why I was leaning to ask you. Do you know how many boards are in the lineup?
Right now,
Yeah, I was gonna. There's a lot. So you probably lost
I
count.
think it's 28 boards right now.
Okay. Solid amount of boards.
Yeah.
Which I was thinking when I'm looking around I could probably ask this question in a couple of ways, because you've got old boards here. But if we're just talking about the current lineup, do you have a favourite? Being someone who's always got the finger on the pulse and always innovating and working to make something new, it might be a hard question to ask. But I've got a favourite board in the lineup. What's your favourite board?
I think my current favorite is definitely the Rhino. and I think it's your favorite too.
That's right.
Because I think with that board we hit the spot. We were in the market with a board that a lot of people wanted.
Yeah.
And it's fun. If you look at the board, it looks really simple, but it was actually quite difficult to make a board that simple. And there's a lot more in it than you actually think about it at first glance. You can see that if you look at it closely, then you can see that there's more stuff in it than you think. And yeah, I mean, this is quite a modern board, and that's what people want right now. And I think that also like opened like a new chapter for us, because we're actually known for having boards with a lot of concave, a lot of features, a lot of flares, drops, combinations of everything. And the Rhino was the simplest board we made.
So, like you say, it is a very simple board in terms of concave and that, but it just ticks so many boxes for a lot of people, and it was exciting actually. I was thinking when I was at K&K, and particularly just spending time in Europe, there were so many rhinos, and I've spent a lot of time skating with Milo, who's here with us right now behind the camera. Milo rides a rhino. When he got that board, we're all just like eyes on, like, what's it like? Give us a go. Da, da, da. Such a great board. My favourite board in the lineup, closely followed by the David board, of course. But we've got some boards behind us here, which a lot of people got to see. You've shown some photos on the Rocket Instagram, the social media. People were able to get their hands on them and their feet on them as well, and take them down K&K. But we've got two, I guess, iterations of the Rhino behind us now. Do you want to talk about them?
Yeah.
We grab them down.
Yeah. So
this one. We'll start with this one.
Yeah. So this is a Rhino with a kicktail.
Okay. Do that. Big kick. Just so the people watching can have a little look at it. But yeah, tell us about this.
Yeah, because we made this because a lot of people have been asking for it. It's a normal Rhino because it's still short, it's narrow, it has a short wheelbase, it's stiff, so it's actually a race board.
Yeah.
But just with an added kick, which makes it just a little bit more fun to play around with. But you can still like take it down a mountain with 100k if you want to.
Yeah, I can just take in one look at this board at K&K. I was thinking this is going to be a fast freeride machine. Like the Rhino already is a favourite board for fast freeriders, but with this kick on it, you can do so much more with a kick.
Absolutely, yeah.
So when you made so many of the Rhinos so far, and then you're adding a kick to it, what was that process like? Was it difficult to add the kick on, or?
It wasn't so difficult because it's pressed on the mold of the Leon.
Okay.
Because the Rhino originally came out of an early Leon prototype.
Right.
So we just like developed the Rhino out of that.
Yep.
And but this is pressed in a Leon mold, so it has just a little bit more drop in the back.
Yep.
Which actually feels pretty good because you usually don't ride a torque block with a kicktail board.
Yeah, that's right.
So it's a bit better to have that a bit more of a pocket in the back.
Yep.
But I mean, this is pretty new, so we're not even sure if we're going to take that in the lineup or not, because we just wanted to make a couple. Same with the other Rhino with the race tail. We made a couple of them for K&K. And just wanted to hear people's opinions, and now it's the other one.
Oh, that's the normal one.
Yeah.
So we got the original Rocket in the center here for people that are watching. Rocket with the kicktail that
The
Rocket
Rhino.
is still. Rhino with the kicktail that Rocket is still deciding on, and then it's probably going to be the most interesting one for a lot of people at home, and it was for me when I first saw it. But what are you calling this?
We call it the Rhino race tail.
The race tail. Talk about the race tail. I'll just hold it up to the camera while you start. Let's try to get. How many ply is the Rhino originally?
It's usually 7 plies.
Okay.
With reinforced with carbon fiber and glass fiber.
Yep.
And this one is 7 plies as well for the most part of the board, and the back is at 13 plies total.
And what made you want to give this a crack?
Because
I've not seen this from any other board builder in my time.
It doesn't exist,
Yeah.
actually. The reason why I developed this was that I always wanted to have a board with like a built-in torque block.
Yep.
And you have different possibilities how to do that. You can either, just you take a torque block and you put it on it, or you can press in a wedge or like a kicktail with like other brands do. And I wanted to make it for the Rise to handle as easy as possible. So with this one, you don't need any wedges because the bottom is actually flat, so you can mount the trucks at 0 degrees. And also something you cannot see here is that the holes on top are a bit bigger so that you can sink your hardware in, and you can use your standard size hardware for this board. So that means you can just take this, grip it, put your trucks on it and give it a go. You don't need wedges and all that stuff.
So even with having the, like you said, the hardware can be kind of sunk down a bit into the board to a flat area. It just would really feel like a torque block underneath your foot. You're not interrupted by the bolts. Not that they make a huge interruption, but you're not interrupted by the bolts. And it's interesting. And people were riding this at K&K?
People have been riding and testing it at K&K, and the feedback was really amazing.
Yeah.
Because what most people said, that it's like you got a direct contact with the board. There's no foam between you and the board. So when you push, you actually have a sturdy surface to push your foot on.
Yep.
And that's what a lot of people liked. And also this one, it's a bit shorter, has a shorter wheelbase, it's narrower. So it's just, it's a board that wants to go fast.
Yeah. And like you said, talking about the Rhino with the kicktail, do you think you're not sure about bringing that one to the lineup permanently? What are you thinking about this one?
I think it definitely looks better for this one right now.
Yep.
Because the feedback was absolutely amazing.
Of course.
I mean, for the kicktail as well.
Yep.
But we can see that when we actually put a post on social media, a lot of people have been like saying, "Oh, we need a rider with a kicktail."
Yeah.
But then afterwards, we can see that the interest was not so big.
Okay. Yeah.
So, but with the race tail, everybody's sending us messages and asking us about the board, because the Rhino with the kicktail, it's great, it feels great, but it's not something completely new.
Yeah.
The race tail with the built-in torque block is something that nobody ever made before. And that's the reason why people are hyped for it.
That's right. It's really, like I said, love the Rhino. Milo's been running it at home for months now. It's such a sick board. But I just love the finish on these boards. You went a couple of years ago, there was the kind of the louder graphics, the full board graphics. You've moved to doing these graphics here, and like with Get That, I get my art done by somebody else, an artist friend.
Yeah.
Who do you want to shout out? Who does the art for these boards?
It's actually the same guy who does the artwork since the beginning. I think you can see the boards here in the shot.
Yeah.
That was the same guy as well. He calls himself Killer Artworks.
Okay.
He's a German guy. And it's funny that he actually has had no experience with board graphics, because he does a lot of artwork for bands. He does band shirts, album covers, usually for punk rock bands. And I was following him on Instagram, and I liked everything he did.
Yeah.
And at some point I thought, oh, come on, why not? I'm gonna send him a message and ask him if he wants to design some board graphics.
Yeah.
And he was on board, and we directly realized that we have a really good connection, and it's really easy to work with him. And that's the reason why this is probably like the sixth line that he designed for us.
No, I love that. I love that there's like a sense of loyalty there, and you've found something that worked for you and you've stuck with it. And just looking at the earlier graphics, they're so interesting and they're so cool, and some of them are so loud and they pop. But even with these graphics behind me, they're so simple, but they really give. It's like it's just rocket to me. It's like it's like its own identity now with these simpler graphics. And when I say simpler, I mean they're not the loud, colourful ones, but they're such nice graphics. These ones. So I like that you were able to find someone and to stick with them and to have that loyalty there. I mean,
Yeah.
it's really helped with, I guess, the identity of Rocket.
Absolutely. I mean, graphics is always a difficult thing because some people love it, some people don't like it. And what we saw is that with like the full board, full color graphics, a lot of people like them a lot, but there were a lot of people who dislike them.
Yeah.
And I think if there's a full graphic and you don't like it, actually some people said they like the board, but they didn't get it because they don't like the graphics.
Okay.
And so then at one point we made some custom boards
Yeah.
with the black style with just a small logo.
Yeah.
And I think every time we sent out a custom, we got like 2-3 messages from people who saw us saying, "Hey, can you do that for me as well?"
Yeah.
And then I was at the point where I thought, why not? I'm just gonna like make a post on Facebook and Instagram asking people, what would you prefer? Would you prefer that simple the blackboard with a simple graphic, or the full thing? And there was like 80% of people said we would prefer just the black.
Yeah. So I've been talking a lot about boards. I just wanted to touch on some, I guess, side projects that you've had lining with Rocket is Dark Matter Grip. It's been a couple of years now, Dark Matter Grip. Tell us about how that came about.
Yeah. Actually, we started the whole project because I thought there was a need for it, a need for better grip tape, and also especially like a need for longer lasting grip tape.
Yeah.
And because of course you got some really good grip tape brands already on the market, but some of them are really difficult to apply.
Yeah.
Some of them, they don't last that long. And so again, also with the boards, I wanted to like make something that is not just the same as everybody else does, but I wanted to bring something new and also like give the customers a reason to buy it. And not the reason not just being like, oh, it's a cool new brand, but also, in my opinion, we try to make a better product.
Yeah.
So that's the reason why we went with the way we're doing it now. It is almost indestructible. I mean, even at the new ones are even a bit better. And so what we changed now is we went from 40 grit, from 60 grit to 40 grit.
Okay.
Because it's actually we already wanted to do that at first, but it's quite difficult to make a grip tape that is really grippy with a really thin backing, because we have that fabric backing. Usually, the coarser it gets, the thicker also the fabric gets. That means it's really difficult to apply, especially on boards with 3D concave. If you have a really sturdy grip tape, you cannot really push it into like a 3D grip, 3D concave, like the Domination, for example, with that huge pan in the front.
Yeah, boards with that gnarly concave.
Yeah. And so now we managed to find a way to have it like in 40 grit, but still with a really thin backing.
Yeah.
So it's still really flexible. And yeah, we're really happy about that, how it came out. And yeah, and people really love it. The feedback is really
people
amazing
loving
so
it.
far.
Yeah, Hop actually gave me some a bit over a year ago now,
Yeah.
maybe 2 years now.
So that was still the first version then, yeah.
Yeah. So you think it's better now?
Yeah, it's
Alright.
definitely grippier now.
All right, awesome. Which leads me to the next thing I wanted to talk about, a product that you've been working on under the Rocket name. That's, I guess, it's very new to the market, but just want to talk about the board weights that you've been doing.
Yeah, yeah. What we call the gravity plates, and well, I told you I always have my eyes open, not just for riders, but also like where people are going, what people are doing. And I saw that a lot of people are putting weights under the boards. And so, yeah, you put diving weights, you put hammers. And I saw, but also know that there are a lot of people who don't want to build something themselves.
Yeah.
Some they have two left hands, they don't really like know how they should do it. And some others, they don't want to like put the whole time and effort in it.
Yeah.
They want to buy a finished product. And that's the reason why we started developing or prototyping with that. And my goal from the beginning was like to make it as easy as possible to apply it, because if we make it for people who don't want to build stuff by themselves,
Yeah.
we have to make it as easy as possible. So we made it that it uses standard hardware that you have from your trucks with the same size. It comes with the hardware,
Yep.
and you can use your normal tool and everything. It comes with a cork riser that you can decide if you want to have it directly under your board or sit like 2 centimeters lower.
Yep.
And then it also comes with a drilling template that you
Yeah.
can perfectly center it on your board, that there's no chance that you have like the holes that are off. And I was really surprised how well I sold, because we had no idea, because we made something that didn't exist on the market, and we have no idea how people would accept that.
Yeah.
And so we made small batch, or I made a small batch, because I make all the plates by
Everything.
myself.
Yeah.
I actually learned how to work with metal to do that, which is pretty interesting actually. And so I made a small batch thinking that would probably last for the whole year, and it was sold out of a bit more than a month.
Right.
So
You just put them all online? Did you take some to K&K? Because I did see a few people riding them at K&K.
Yeah, I mean, we put them online and didn't sell all of them before K&K. So all we took to K&K,
Yep.
and even a few of the old prototypes with different logos and stuff on it, and they were gone after a bit more than a day.
Yeah, awesome.
And yeah, I mean, it's actually perfect to bring them to an event, because people can actually like see and feel it.
That's right.
And they can also directly buy it, test it, and get used to it on a hill that they can skate for 6 days. So I can completely understand why people wanted to get a weight there, because it was a great time to get into that and to try it. And so yeah, I already started working on the second batch, so
Yeah.
I can bring some to Justica next weekend, and
Nice.
then we'll put them online after that.
Yeah, I'm keen to actually talk to Benson when we get back to Australia to hear his thoughts on it.
Yeah.
And how he's liking it on his board. I've mentioned K&K a few times, obviously, because we're in Europe at the moment while K&K is on, and just wanted to touch on a photo that you, I think you get it done every year at K&K, but it was just a beautiful photo of all the people that were riding rocket boards at K&K, and it just looks like there's 100 people in there. I'm not sure of the exact number, but when I go to events and I see people wearing Get That, or if I even just open up social media, see people wearing Get That on the other side of the world, or at big events, K&K as well, there were a lot of people. But how do you, because I struggle to find the words sometimes to explain how that feels.
Yeah.
How does it feel seeing all those riders at K&K in that photo, all on boards that you've built with your hands?
Yeah, I mean, of course, it feels amazing. It's always saying that on the first day you get up the hill and you look around, you can see, oh, there's one of the boards, there's one of the boards, there's one of the boards. And even if you just see them from the side, I know my boards. I know our concaves, and it always feels really, really special to have so many people riding our boards. And also that's the reason why we want to gather everybody together for a group picture every time, because it also, like, yeah, I think people can finally see how many riders there are, and they also like see that they're not alone. There are so many people who are still liking the same brand, and yeah, we do that every year, and it's getting more every year.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
And,
I saw a lot at K&K of, I was with Milo, we were standing around Bumpy having a look at his board. I saw other people like comparing their setups, if it's on like one of the Dom boards or the Carlotti, people looking at Carlotti's board, and it was just so nice to see in real time like the impact that Rocket has on the scene over here in Europe. And it's not just Europe, it's worldwide, and of course K&K brings people from all around the world.
Yeah, I mean, K&K is definitely something special, because we're going to K&K for years now.
Yeah.
And there's nobody else who is up there talking to the people with for a week. So I'm always there. I'm handing out test boards, and everything you want to know, you can just come to the tent and chat with me.
Yeah.
And I think that's something really important, so
Very
that you're close to the scene, you're talking to people, and also that's where I get feedback and input from people who maybe say, oh, I've got that board, I like it, but maybe this could be a bit short or narrow or whatever.
Yeah.
And so I keep that all in mind when I'm working on boards, like, or also when we get messages or emails from people who have like questions about boards. I listen to people and I try to like implement that and make boards that people actually want. And it's nothing better than just to be on a hill for 6 days and talk to them.
Yeah. Yeah, really special. So, like I said earlier in the conversation, congratulations on 10 years of Rocket.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
It's been so good to see. Now, if you're looking at the future in terms of the next 10 years, you know, other than a collaboration with Get That, what do you see happening with Rocket in the next 10 years?
Yeah, I mean, it's actually really hard to predict the future, because 10 years ago, if somebody asked you where's it going to go, nobody would say it's going to go to 29-inch long downhill boards.
Yeah.
And so maybe it's going back to longboards, I don't know. But what I always like a lot about skateboarding and building skateboards, it's that every time you think, I think we're done now, you're never done.
Yeah.
There's always something new and there's always something next coming. And that's the reason why we're always trying to be like there and like not just like bring that next board 10 years or a couple of years after the others, but we want to bring it before the others. And that's the reason why we always like constantly like working with new riders, with like progressive riders who I think are the future. And so we can actually build the boards of the future before everybody else does.
Yeah. Man, love everything you're doing.
Thanks.
Wanted to say before
Likewise.
I wrap it up, I love the family aspect that you've shown and that I could see before coming here and having these conversations with you. Like in terms
Same
of
with
the
Cat
team.
Dad, right?
Yeah, that's it. Well, we're passionate about what we do, so
Yeah.
it's eventually it shows. But I love learning about the loyalty with your riders, your artists, your innovation as well, and everything you've done for downhill skating, not just in Europe, but at a worldwide scale. And like I said, my friends are supported by Rocket, David, Benson, and all these other fantastic riders. So love everything you do. Wish you nothing but success for the next 10 years. And again,
Thanks.
Congratulations on 10 years so far, but very excited to see what happens over the next 10 years. And thanks for having us here at the factory.
Of course. I mean, I tell that to everybody. I like to have visitors. I like to show what we do here. There are no secrets. And everybody who's in Switzerland, send us a message and come here.
I can't believe I'm in Switzerland, first and foremost, but the main place I wanted to come to in Switzerland was the Rocket Factory. So
Thanks.
Thanks for your time. I appreciate it. Excited for everything to come.
Thanks for coming by.
Thanks for jumping on the podcast.
You're welcome.
Shout out to everyone listening to the Get That Skate podcast. If you like this one, let us know. Reach out to Rocket. If you're riding the Rocket board, let us know what board you're riding, how you have it set up. Sickest boards. Thanks for everything.
Thanks.